I cannot believe you forgot about my new Chanel. It is okay, you know? Life happens. It's okay. I forgive you for forgetting about my new Chanel. What's the title? FBI raid. What did Fek Alec want me to cover? More Epstein, I guess. Or Epstein. More Epstein, I guess. And news, news, news. News, news, news. That's done. And now I raid myself. Lucy time. What? What Lucy time? What do you mean? Will the website work? Yes, it will, because the website is connected to Twitch, and I'm not stopping the Twitch stream. That's why I connected the website to Twitch, so that it never ends. Okay? Lucy is not an evil creep, okay? Are you saying that I'm an evil creep? Listen, if you go to the new channel, okay, and okay, and you have to tell me all about your beef with, you know, what's his face, Danabo. See you. It's never over until it's over, and they ain't over until it's over. Okay. We are back, of course. I'm live on the. Oh, I have to change the thing. Boom. There you go. We are on. We were never gone. Okay? Okay, here you go, my viewers, my beautiful viewers. We do some politicking. Also, the only Star Wars thing regarding Palpatine that I remember is I am the Senate, okay? That's the only bit that I remember from the Star Wars thing. I am the Senate, okay? Also remember that we're still fundraising. We're still fundraising for me to be able to live and love. Live and let live when it comes to these things, you know? Do you know what I mean? Do you understand my filius? Hmm. weird. Doesn't even recommend it. That's worrying. Doesn't even arrive at my live page. Weird. Okay, we're ready. How is everyone right now? How is everybody? Did you see that Green Day will be opening at the Super Bowl and have been changing lyrics of American Idiot to be anti-MAGA? Yeah? I did not see that. You should have told me when it was slop time. Or should I treat it as serious politics time? The fact that something MAGA time. Oh, a new segment has been uploaded to this channel. Isn't that exciting? Hold on. I am all over the place, you know? I'm always all over the place. It's up to you. I just wanted to share. Okay. All right, let's see. Apparently, there was trouble in the Czech Republic that I didn't know about. Apparently, the more Eurosceptic, pro-Russian Prime Minister of the Czech Republic was in trouble, but he survived. By some miracle, against all odds, the Prime Minister has survived. A parliamentary no-confidence vote to put forward by the opposition against the Eurosceptic coalition government of the Czech Republic Minister Andrej Babiš failed on Wednesday. Interesting that the article itself just mirrors my sentiment that it's the main problem of this prime minister and his cabinet and his whole thing is that he is a Eurosceptic. And by extension, he is a more pro-Russian. He was one of the people that actually... All right. Peter Pavel, to my understanding, is good. To my understanding, yeah, I guess so, yeah. Sorry, I just got a message from a loyal supporter. All right. So he was one of the people that actually blocked the unfreezing, and he was one of the people that blocked the initiative to give a loan to Ukraine using the frozen Russian assets. So he joined the League of the Weird Countries like Slovakia and Hungary. I was very nervous about this election when this person won, because the Czech Republic has been a big support for Ukraine, and they've been on top of the initiative to purchase artillery shells for Ukraine from a third-party source. The vote held just 20 days after the government was confirmed by parliament was sparked by an escalating feud between the pro-EU president Petr Pavel and key members of a junior ruling coalition party called the Motorists. The dispute erupted when Pavel refused to appoint as minister a politician nominated by the government on the ground that he had performed a Nazi salute and posted racist content on social media. Okay, hold on. I want context for that. When has it become so acceptable to do Nazi salutes now in public? The rift widened after Pavel accused another member of the Motorists' foreign minister, Petr Macinka, of issuing threats to pressure him into appointing Filip Turek as environment minister. I want to see that salute, and I want to see the Twitter thing. The spat, that is an interesting way to call it, a spat. The spat led to thousands of Czechs taking to the streets of Prague in support of the president, who enjoys greater public backing than the government, according to opinion polls. Well, I guess it did not pan out. If he had such great support, then the vote of no confidence would have went different, but maybe I'm incorrect in that assessment. I want to see the racist comment on the social media. Candidate for Czech foreign minister under scrutiny for racist social media posts. Okay, let's see. The Czech Republic's candidate for foreign minister is alleged to have written racist and xenophobic social media posts amid negotiations to form a new government. Czech publication Deník N reported that right-wing Motorist party politician Filip Turek, who is touted to be the country's next top diplomat, published racist and xenophobic posts online. The winner of the recent parliamentary elections, Andrej Babiš of the populist ANO movement, on Saturday demanded an explanation and called the allegations against Turek serious. Babiš is negotiating with the Motorists and far-right anti-European and anti-immigration SPD party. A basic agreement between the parties was announced on Friday. Motorist leader Petr Macinka said on Saturday that he has full confidence in Turek, and the reports hindered the formation of a new government. What was the statement? Deník N reported that Turek repeatedly posted openly racist, sexist, and homophobic statements on Facebook, as well as numerous allusions to Nazi leader Adolf Hitler and fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. Yeah, that's the Europe that we live in now. Okay, it's okay to be a high-level diplomat and just Nazi post. I guess we live in a post-Elon Musk era now. Post-Nazi salute. He allegedly described former US President Barack Obama as an N-word who can only sell hashish at the train station. Of course, it also became very, fashionable to crap on Barack Obama because Trump does it, I guess. I actually had a viewer once that said that, yeah. I actually had a viewer that was arguing that the new government in the Czech Republic is good. Okay. The xenophobic remarks targeted the British royal family after Meghan's marriage to Harry. This is not the first time serious accusations have been made against Turek, including before and during the European Parliament election campaign in 2024. There have been reports of gestures reminiscent of Nazi salutes, a collection of knives with Nazi emblems, and violence against his partner. Great. Now those are amazing times when people like that become ministers of foreign. Yeah, you know what? Maybe the vote for non-confidence was. Maybe there's something to it. Okay, maybe there's something to people getting angry at such a guy possibly becoming the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Before the recent parliamentary elections, a video surfaced showing him driving significantly over the speed limit. His explanation that the photos were taken on a German highway turned out to be false. Because, of course, Jesus Christ. A neo-Nazi as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Good luck, Czech Republic. Turek said he never made the posts and vowed to take legal action. He also claimed to be victim of a hate campaign. Of course, cancel culture and all that crap. The rift widened after Pavel accused another member of moderates, Machinka, opinion polls, uneasy cohabitation. After winning an October election, Babiš populist and ANO party cobbled together a coalition with the motorists and the far right, pro-Russian SP. Oh yeah, they're just all out pro-Russian shills. There we go. This is the new coalition. They're probably against any sort of support for Ukraine. They're probably for stopping any sort of purchases of artillery for Ukraine. I would not be surprised at all. Where am I? You're in my channel. Who are you? You're in the channel of Lucy Haze. I do politics and war journalism. And time raid. Oh. Hello. Oh, I've been raided. Oh my god. Time traveler raid. Welcome. Okay. So I guess I do news and I do war journalism. Also, I also have this. Oh, you remember me? Yeah, I went to In Time twice to talk about what I do in Ukraine, which is report on the situation on, the children. Yeah, I have been twice. And I've been talking about reporting on the situation of Ukrainian children, the kidnapped Ukrainian children, and if I can manage to fundraise, I will be going to Ukraine soon again and do more reporting on children. That is basically what I do. I am a political streamer, biggest Polish trans streamer, and on the other channel, I also, yeah. Yes. I also started a new channel, okay? I started a new channel where I actually upload all of my interviews and documentaries from Ukraine. This is it. It's called Lucy Haze Films, where I upload what I do in Ukraine. So if you're interested in my work in Ukraine, this is where you will find the culmination of those efforts after I edit the videos and upload them as either interviews or bigger documentary style material, which I'm working on right now. I do know Rick the Ukrainian. He actually recommended in one of his streams, he actually recommended my first interview. I got an endorsement from Rick the Ukrainian. And I also got an endorsement from Dylan Burns. And President Sunday. President Sunday also endorsed me. Yeah, I never did a stream with the Ukrainian, but when I'm in Kiev, maybe I'll be able to do one of those live cafe streams because I'm usually in Kiev. I usually sit in Kiev. I went to Kharkiv to do a few interviews, which will be incidentally the next documentary that I will upload. Will be from my time in Kharkiv when I went to a nearby village near Kharkiv and I filmed you could call it group therapy of children that are away from school and don't have time to socialize. It is an effort by an NGO to create an environment in which children will be able to socialize as well as learn. It's more socializing than learning. They do fun activities like drawing, they create stories, and then they present them to the group. It does not really follow a strict school-like curriculum. The idea is for them to open up, to socialize, and when they show signs of trauma, for psychologists to take them aside and do one-on-one therapy work with them. It's all gonna be in that documentary because I spoke with the 3 psychologists that are in charge of running those lessons. It's gonna be good material. Yeah, exactly. And also there's the fact that children are cooped up at home. They never meet their peers, which actually leads to some serious developmental problems. It leads to serious problems with interacting with people in general. And there are children, I think I've said that many times on different occasions, many Ukrainian children have actually almost never experienced learning in class. They only experienced online education because there was COVID, and then almost immediately there was the war. So they went from learning online due to COVID to learning online due to the war, and they have almost zero experience of learning in a classroom, which is a very, very depressing and horrible reality that we have found ourselves in. I mean, multiplayer will not, no matter what, multiplayer or Minecraft will never replace you meeting with your peers in real life. With your peers. So yes, we just did a news segment on the Czech Republic and the new prime minister surviving an attempt to oust him via no confidence vote, because apparently his soon-to-be Minister of Foreign Affairs is a neo-Nazi who does Nazi salutes and posts about Hitler on social media. So the president, who is not a Eurosceptic, got angry, and the populace got angry in general. And, online it doesn't, but my kids have this server, all of their friends since grade school. That makes sense. But, you still need the real life interaction. So I guess that's the Czech Republic now. It became Eurosceptic, more Eurosceptic due to the new prime minister. It became far more pro-Russian due to, you're right, but war. Yeah, but that's why the NGOs organize as safe as you can environment to facilitate group activities for kids. This particular organization's works all over Ukraine, and I've actually recorded at least 2 different sessions, one in Kyiv and one in Kharkiv. So I've been working quite a lot with this particular organization called The Voices of Children. Look at this. After winning an October election, Babiš populist ANO party cobbled together a coalition with the motorists and the far-right pro-Russian SPD. The ANO leader now has to navigate maintaining an uneasy cohabitation with the president while appeasing his own coalition members. The outcome of Wednesday ballot, with 84 votes in favor and 99 against following 22 hours of debate over 2 days, came as no great surprise to political observers, as Babiš coalition has 108 seats in the 200-seat parliament. The Czech Republic is going down a bad route, in my opinion. I'm not arguing against, just offering some copium mechanism if perhaps they need something. Yeah, they need as much copium as they can. I can't believe calling out Nazis is as hard as it was in the 30s. We're back. We're back in the environment when suddenly many such things are becoming acceptable. Like, keep in mind that this neo-Nazi guy that will be the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the world is copying Trump. The world is copying the likes of Trump. The world is copying the likes of Elon Musk. Like, look at this. This is the biggest giveaway of it being Trump-inspired. Where is it? The Obama thing. I'm going to show you. It's in the article. Here. Okay, so Denik N reported that Turek is the guy that is to become the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Czech Republic, reportedly posted openly racist, sexist, and homophobic statements on Facebook, as well as numerous allusions to Nazi leader Adolf Hitler and fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. And there it is. There is the Trump or inspired stuff. He allegedly described former US President Barack Obama as an N-word who can only sell hashish at the train station. I think it's pretty clear what's happening here. With Trump always criticizing Biden, with Trump always criticizing Obama. American Nazism is homegrown. The Madison Square Garden, like 1939, as if it was a requirement for the resurrection. Like, whatever happens in the US becomes an emboldening thing. Of course, it also backfired. I will say that Trump has also caused many right-wing parties to lose elections over Europe. But it seems like unfortunately, in the case of the Czech Republic, this did not cause the loss of a far-right movement. The vote of no confidence has failed, and we will continue watching the Czech Republic moving in a more Eurosceptic, pro-Russian, and pro-Trump direction, much like Slovakia and Hungary, both of these countries also being the same, which is very disappointing because it basically destroys the unity of the European Union. And what the European Union desperately needs right now is unity. Poland treats Russia like Blitzkrieg never happened. I don't get Europe anymore. Wait, what do you mean Poland treats Russia like Blitzkrieg never happened? Can you elaborate? Poland treats Russia as if it was the worst thing ever. Trust me when I say that Poland is treating Russia very seriously, especially under the current administration. Poland is very aggressively anti-Russia, which for good reasons, actually. Poland has very legitimate, in my opinion, reasons to be, let's just say, skeptical of Russia, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? It is weird how some countries seem determined to learn lessons the hard way. Yeah, like It does seem that way. As a NATO nation, that's grounds to Article 5 and should have by now. Well, Russia accidentally hits Poland, and how many times? And all that happens is Article 4. Yeah, but unfortunately, Europe is spineless. I'm going to be honest. In my opinion, at this point, Poland should be protecting Western Ukraine by shooting down missiles and drones. That's the least thing that Poland should be doing. Poland should be, and I'm saying this as a Polish person living in Poland, Poland should be sending troops to Ukraine. That is a far more extremist view, but that is my view. Poland should be supporting Ukraine with troops on the ground. And of course, bear in mind, this has been a discussion in Poland way before the world was interested in Ukraine. Between 2014 and 2022, there was serious discussion in Poland on whether or not it should be sending troops to Ukraine. The former president, Andrzej Duda, who was very much a conservative president, when he was asked years ago during his presidential campaign, that was before 2022, if Poland should send troops to support Ukraine in Donbass. That was when it was not a full-scale invasion, when it was still just fighting in the Donbass region. He was asked if Poland should be sending troops to Ukraine, and his response was that we have to be calm and we have to discuss all possible options, including sending troops to Ukraine. But ever since then, the stance has become much firmly, we will never send troops. But it is worthy of remembering that Poland has had many discussions about possibly sending troops even before the full-scale invasion. It is a thing that you should keep in mind when we discuss this. We have a few other topics. Trump ideology conflicts with European values, which, that is, of course, it conflicts with European values. The guy that wants to do away with international law, the guy that says that the only limit to his actions is his own personal morality, the person that would like to build a new world order, and I mean Trump, that basically believes in might makes right politics, that believes that any country that is not nuclear, that the US wants to invade is fair game, which basically gives a tacit permission for China and Russia to do the same. The division of the world into spheres of influence, where every big country, nuclear country, has their own sphere of influence, their own backyard, so to speak. That is not a world that exactly gels with European values, especially the European Union. And also the fact that Trump very much would like the European Union to break up into individual, much weaker nation states that would be much easier to handle. Ijeadai says, worth noting that Poland dropped all pretense of borders to save as many Ukrainians as possible from invasion. I have been calling Poland the shield of the Cossacks since. Yeah, that has been a thing. Like many people, it is important about Poland to understand that a lot of the support for Ukrainian refugees has been done more by citizens than by the government. The government did a pretty good job at creating the framework in which Ukrainian people could find employment easily and could legalize their stay easily. But many people in Poland took Ukrainian refugees into their own homes. For example, I had 2 refugees living in my home for quite a bit. Many people just, they would reserve a room or something where they, in their houses, apartments, and what have you. and they would take in refugees to live with them for free, basically. Sometimes you could ask the government to give you some monetary assistance with that, but for the most part, that assistance was not that great. And for the most part, a lot of people just allowed Ukrainian refugees to live with them for free until they could gather their bearings, so to speak, to get a job, to start a business, and what have you. And the government, as I said, did create a pretty useful framework for the Ukrainian refugees to easy, without any complicated paperwork, find employment, which, by the way, proved to be a case study for the fact that immigration actually is a positive for the receiving country. Ukrainian refugees have given to the economy much more than taken out via social programs, which is a very clear demonstration that if you create favorable conditions for legalization of stay, if you create favorable, more importantly, favorable conditions to find employment, immigration will prove to be a net positive for a country. And it won't, in my opinion, it won't matter if it will be refugees or immigrants from Africa, Middle East, or Ukraine or any other country. If you build those conditions for immigrants to be able to function normally in a country, you will see benefits. You will reap the benefits. The country will reap the benefits of that, which completely demolishes the narrative about immigrants just leeching off of social programs, doing crime, and generally speaking, doing bad things. The Ukrainian refugees in Poland have completely destroyed this sort of narrative, have disproven it decisively, in my opinion. Also, like the stream, and remember to do a subscription, to subscribe to this channel. This is a new fledgling channel. I have divided my internet streaming activity into 3 channels. I might as well do some organizational stuff for people that are new viewers from the raid. One is my Lucy Haze channel, the main channel. It has been my main channel until now. It has about 1,500 subscribers, and I'm using it now for gaming and art and other type of content like that. I have divided this channel up to do only news, serious coverage, serious commentary, no silly content over here. This is the serious business channel. But it is new. It is a fledgling channel. I'm trying to grow it. I'm trying to grow an audience for people that like to listen to the news, to listen to politics and war coverage. This is the channel for people that are interested in that and nothing else. And yes, so if you like that, then consider subscribing. And the third channel, on which I upload pre-made, carefully edited interviews that I conduct in Ukraine as part of my war journalism. I go out there to Ukraine to do interviews about the situation of the children in the country and in the occupied territories and kidnapped. And then I turn them into articles that are published in a magazine that I cooperate with, as well as I create video material. That's basically the 3-channel model that I have very recently adopted, which I am secretly hoping will not backfire on me and will prove to be a great success. Any questions? Any thoughts? And of course, I've got a page, again, that you can go to, lucyhaze.org/live, if you enjoy. Yes. Slava Ukraini. which Polish and Ukrainian are very similar languages, by the way. You might have heard that Polish and Ukrainian actually share more vocabulary than Ukrainian and Russian, which many people are shocked when they hear it, but it's true. Like I can give a few examples. Yes, in Ukrainian is tak. Yes, in Polish is tak. Yes, in Russian is da. Thank you in Polish is dziękuję. Thank you in Ukrainian is dziękuję. And thank you in Russian is spasiba. And there are several other examples like that, basically, of Polish and Ukrainian having much more similar vocabulary than Ukrainian and Russian. All right. So we have a few more topics that I would like to do on the apparently let's go here. Actually, let's see. Trump ideology conflicts with European values, which is absolutely true. Trump ideology conflicts with European values, says Finland's president. Europe and Finland need to acknowledge that the United States is changing and that the US administration's ideology behind its foreign policy conflicts with our own values. I think I basically explain why that is. I feel like I have basically given a TLDR of might makes right not exactly being in alignment with European values. Finland's President Alexander Stubb said on Wednesday, European NATO members, including Finland, have been rethinking their foreign policy strategies in recent weeks. After US President Donald Trump in January inflamed tensions with his European allies over Greenland and overseas territory belonging to Denmark, I think it is very important for Europe to finally get a grip, so to speak. Europe is very fragmented. Europe is not being able to compete on the international stage as it is. It is a very fragmented political element to it. And more importantly, it has a very fragmented military. The military of the European Union is fragmented into individual nation states with their individual military industrial complexes, which stands no chance against the large-scale Chinese production, even Russian production, or the United States production. What Europe needs to do is to ditch the idea of each nation state in Europe having their own production, because each European country cannot produce weapons at the scale necessary to make it cheaper at scale, economy of scale, which means that Europe produces weapons of the same quality as the United States at a much higher price because it's produced in smaller quantities. And that is a thing that Europe has to very urgently address, and quite frankly is having problems with that because there are countries in Europe that see any sort of streamlining, any sort of federalization as a threat to the sovereignty of the individual nation states. But that is neither here nor there. That is something that the Trump administration very much plays into and is trying to encourage by saying that the European Union is trying to destroy European culture, is trying to destroy European values, that white Europeans are being replaced via immigration, and that it's better to just do business with individual European nation states instead of the European Union. Basically pushing for an undoing of the European Union. European NATO members, including Finland, have been rethinking their foreign policy. We already read that. President Donald Trump in January inflamed tensions with his European allies over Greenland. Finland will update its foreign and security policy doctrine to reflect the changes in the international situation, Stubb told members of parliament in a speech. We must honestly acknowledge that the United States is undergoing change, its approach to its allies. And by that I mean the United States treats its former allies as enemies, so Europe, for example, and it treats its political opponents as friends, like Russia, which is why Trump treats Vladimir Putin, a ruthless dictator, as a good friend, has long, good phone calls with him every week, and is looking to do lucrative business with Russia when it comes to the rare earth minerals, because as I have stated a couple of times when speaking of the Russia-US relations, Russia is in the possession of 10% of the global reserves of rare earth minerals, but Russia exports only 2% of those rare earth minerals. And that is because Russia is not very good at refinement, but is also not good at the excavation of those minerals. And here is where Trump hopes to swoop in with American companies that have the expertise when it comes to excavation as well as refinement of those minerals. And the war in Ukraine is basically just an obstacle to Trump's plans when it comes to Russia. So we must acknowledge that how the United States is conducting foreign policy is that it's changing. He said calling the US nevertheless an important ally, because the United States at the end of the day is the most powerful country in the world. And it's very difficult to just decide they are not our allies anymore. We are in conflict with the United States, especially for the fragmented European Union that we have today. Stubb has sought to maintain close relations with Trump to seek his support for Ukraine, which is not working at all. That is just not working. Stubb has sought to maintain close relations with Trump, support for Ukraine, and to boost Finland's own security as a neighbor to Russia. The foreign policy of the current US administration is underpinned by an ideology that conflicts with our own values, Stubb said, giving as examples of such conflicts of values the US undermining the existing international order, so undermining the idea of rules-based order, of international law, of the idea that a neighbor cannot just invade its smaller neighbor and grab territory, operating outside international institutions and downplaying the importance of Europe, basically treating it as just a collection of individual states. Stubb gave no timeline for the foreign and security policy review, but said the work with the government was only beginning. And I echo these sentiments. Europe must distance itself from Trump's cabinet. It must unfortunately distance itself from the United States and possibly seek allies elsewhere. It definitely has to get a grip and consolidate within. I think it's time for more federalization within the European Union, and I think it's definitely time to create a unified European military. And it's time to step up when it comes to support of Ukraine. These are the necessary prerequisites to actually being able to loudly and boldly say that Europe opposes Trump's agenda when it comes to international relations. Otherwise, it will just be a hollow condemnation which will not lead to anywhere, which unfortunately there's a possibility that that is exactly what will happen. it will end up in the European Union just very hollowly trying to condemn Trump's undoing of the world order, but won't do anything about it. Let's hope that will not be the case. But as always, I'm Polish, so I do not hold my breath. I'm a very negative person. Well, I'm not a negative person. I'm just bitter. Does that make sense? Does that make any sort of sense that I'm bitter Nancy? I think it makes sense. I think it makes perfect sense to be like me. We have new news on Epstein, because that is how I read it. That is how I read the surname, Epstein. The new Epstein news, which I've been asked to cover. Here's how Epstein broke the internet. He's meeting with the founder of 4chan and his quest to profit of the end of democracy. Because Epstein, I guess, knew everybody, everywhere, all at once around the world and pulled all the strings. Apparently, he also was the culprit behind the anti-trans hysteria that we have to deal with right now. The anti-trans climate that we have found ourselves in. Apparently, Mr. Epstein had some doing in that as well. It's just incredible. And by incredible, I mean horrifyingly terrible. I spent most of my 20s covering what we now call the global populism wave. I got my start in the newsrooms writing 4chan explainers, trawling through school shooter manifestos, and eventually that work took me around the world. I followed far-right soccer hooligan Tommy Robinson as he marched through the streets of London in the weeks leading up to Brexit, monitored 4chan users in France and Germany as they tried to hijack their respective elections, attended Facebook's election party in Rome, interviewed Bolsominion YouTubers in Brazil, went to Estonia to learn about how the country was protecting itself from Russian-led disinformation campaigns, and even went back to the source, interviewing Japanese bloggers in Tokyo about 2chan or Futaba channel, the site that inspired 4chan. Jesus, Futaba channel. This is going way back. I had a front row seat to the collapse of the global order, and I believed at the time that I understood what was going on. In the aftermath of the Great Recession, far-right extremists, aided and amplified by Russia's internet research agency and funded by Republican dark money, infiltrated fringe online spaces. They weaponized disaffected young men and used sites like Reddit and 4chan to organize a flood of content that influenced the unthinking algorithms on larger platforms like Facebook and YouTube. But there were always holes in that explanation that I could never quite account for. A feeling that one that can be quite dangerous for a journalist trying not to fall into the void of conspiracy theories. That there was something bigger going on. And while I can't say we have the complete story yet, it does increasingly feel like I was actually, without knowing it, following Jeffrey Epstein around the world the whole time. I mean, I gotta say that Epstein definitely had a presence all over the world. He definitely has had a presence in Estonia and many other countries. It's incredible just how many tentacles in how many places that guy has had. Based on the newest tranche of emails and texts released by the Justice Department this weekend, Epstein at the very least believed that he was orchestrating the downfall of the global order in the 2010s. I mean, he definitely knew all the politicians. He definitely knew all the people. There are politicians in Estonia and other countries that are now placing their resignations because they have been named in the newest leaks. In Slovakia, one politician placed on resignation because he said that he does not want to embarrass Fico with the allegations. In June 2016, he emailed venture capitalist, early Facebook investor, and Palantir founder Peter Thiel, writing, "Brexit is just the beginning." He then laid out the most succinct mission statement we currently have for what Epstein was trying to accomplish. "Return to tribalism," he wrote. "Counter to globalization. Amazing new alliances. You and I both agreed zero interest rates were too high. And as I said in your office, finding things on their way to collapse was much easier than finding them the next bargain." Epstein's message gives us a glimpse, one we were never meant to see, of a shadowy world of international espionage, deregulated finance, far-right politics, eugenist race science, information warfare, and unfathomably intricate human trafficking networks. And as we know, Epstein, if anything, was an expert in human trafficking. That is his main spiel. That is his main thing. Epstein wanted to break the internet and eventually democracy to cover his tracks and cash in on the chaos. Here's everything we know so far about how he planned to do it. World of Warcraft and the downfall of democracy. I guess the world order was to be Azeroth, and Epstein wanted to be the Scourge, like in Warcraft 3. Warcraft 3 was the one before World of Warcraft. Remember Warcraft 3? I remember Warcraft 3. Based on the documents we have access to, these were twin obsessions for Epstein: manipulating that we see online and finding digital alternatives to traditional finance. So, Bitcoin, I guess, BitCurrency. During the last years of his life, these two ideas would dovetail into one project: building a far-right takeover of Europe with Stephen Bannon. Following his 2008 conviction for soliciting prostitution of a child, Epstein spent a considerable amount of time managing his online reputation, and the fact that he was still allowed to work. Again, Epstein was allowed to work during the day, and he was just asked that he would return to prison at night. In 2013, he had a list of instructions for managing his digital footprint that were meant to be forwarded to the new SEO tech person, and a 2014 invoice shows that he was spending $1,000 a month to reinforce positive listings. In November 2010, he received an email from visual arts Al Sekel with the subject line, "Hacking Wiki Again." Okay. Sekel said he was fighting with Wikipedia editors about whether or not Epstein's page should be included in the site's sex offender category. Sekel also claimed that he was recording the IP addresses of editors that pushed back, hacked the site to block them. Bannon first, that's the fact that they needed to hack Wikipedia to clean Epstein. There's no cleaning Epstein's image. It's literally impossible. And I feel like even at that point, it was already kind of a doomed to fail mission to try to rehabilitate his image. Bannon first enters the picture when Epstein took an interest in World of Warcraft. Epstein was close with Brock Pierce, cryptocurrency entrepreneur, who co-founded the stablecoin Tether. In 2001, Pierce founded Internet Gaming Entertainment, or IGE, a company that tried to build a trading market for in-game currency for video games like WoW. In 2007, Pierce was replaced at IGE by Bannon, and in November 2016, Epstein's longtime accountant Richard Kahn emailed Epstein a Wired article about Bannon's role at IGE. In-game currency especially was a fixation for him. He emailed former Activision CEO Bobby Kotick in May 2013 a long diatribe about using virtual items and in-game currency to co-opt the existing video game industry. Epstein knew everybody. Bobby Kotick is his own type of monster within the gaming industry, a very immoral piece of shit. So I guess zero shock that Bobby Kotick would know Epstein. Somehow I'm not surprised by this revelation at all. Not in the slightest. And replace traditional education. He seemed to think that you could inspire kids to learn better by gamifying it. Journalist Michael Wolff, who advised Epstein on media strategy, would formally connect Bannon and Epstein in October 2017, 2 days after the New York Times published the investigation into director Harvey Weinstein, which jump-started the Me Too movement. Bannon and Epstein would message often about Me Too, referring to it by its other name, Time's Up. At one point, the two men brainstormed how to use cryptocurrency to fund a populist nationalist coalition that could stave off Time's Up for the next decade plus. Of course, they would be tied to Me Too. Again, no surprise there. And it seems like both Bannon and Epstein had already independently figured out the perfect place to build that coalition, 4chan. Yeah, all roads lead to 4chan, it seems. Epstein met Moot. One of the central internet mysteries of the last 15 years is why 4chan creator Christopher Poole reversed course in 2011 and brought back the site's politics board, which is called POL, or Politically Incorrect. It would become the staging ground for Gamergate in the 2016 Trump campaign and far-right populism wave that swept the world in the back half of the 2010s. A version of POL was attempted 2 times before it finally stuck. First was an N, which was meant to be a section for news content, which ultimately became the Transportation Boards in 2008, and then again in 2010 when Poole launched New, largely as a way to quarantine the overwhelming amount of support on the site for Ron Paul's 2008 presidential campaign. Poole shut down New in January 2011, telling users at the time, "As for New, anybody who used it knows exactly why it was removed. When I re-added the board last year, I made a note that if it devolved into Stormfront, I'd remove it." Stormfront is one of the oldest neo-Nazi communities on the web. So it has never made much sense as to why Poole would ban New for being a racist hellhole, and then barely a year later launch POL, a board specifically designed to be a racist hellhole. But buried inside the newest batch of files related to the Epstein investigation is a possible hint as to what made Poole change his mind. He met with Epstein the day before Paul was created because, of course, again, Epstein knew absolutely everybody. They were all in cahoots, it seems. A pretty global anti-globalist project, if I do say so myself. On October 20th, 2011, Boris Nikolic, a venture capitalist and former advisor to Bill Gates, sent Epstein the Wikipedia page for Christopher Poole, writing, "There is a cool guy, kid, that you should meet." 4 days later, Nikolic followed up asking Epstein, "How did you like Moot? He's very sensitive, so be gentle." Poole's username for years was Moot or Moot. "I liked him a lot. I drove him home. He's very bright," Epstein replied. Nikolic went on to write that he will be a friend and that he is one of the greatest hackers. There you have it. Also, apparently, Bill Gates and Epstein had a weird falling out, and Bill Gates banned him from Xbox Live because that happened, apparently. According to Epstein's emails, that appears to be the only time Epstein successfully made contact with Poole. It seems like organizing a simple lunch meeting with Poole was a genuine nightmare for Epstein and his team. Nikolic said he planned to meet Poole again in early November, and according to a reminder Epstein said, it seems like he planned to meet Poole at the same time. There's also a separate email thread from October 31st with an unidentified correspondent where the redacted sender takes credit for introducing Nikolic and Poole, writing, "I introduced Boris to Chris Poole and got them talking, encouraged Boris to get to know him. Boris said the two of you really hit it off." Epstein had subsequent meetings scheduled with Poole on November 23rd, January 27th, 2012, which Poole cancelled last minute. And again in February, there are nearly 100 emails going back and forth about how Poole kept flaking on them. Well, I guess in 2012, I guess Epstein was at that point already a convicted pedophile, right? For soliciting a minor for prostitution. So I guess it would make sense that people would start flaking on him. But Epstein didn't forget about 4chan. We can't say for sure if he was an active user, but in 2017, he sent Karina Shuliak, his girlfriend at the time, a 4chan link containing 5 Nights at Freddy's porn. What? This whole Epstein thing just keeps getting weirder and weirder. Who is this Karina Shuliak that was his girlfriend? Meanwhile, in March 2012, Bannon, following the death of conservative blogger Andrew Breitbart, was installed as the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. In 2014, 4chan's video game board, V, and Paul started lighting up about the Gamergate conspiracy theory. Milo Yiannopoulos, then a young tech writer for Breitbart, would transform Gamergate from fringe message board drama into the cornerstone of the global far-right movement by repackaging it in articles optimized for Facebook traffic. Oh, Milo Yiannopoulos, a very familiar name, if there ever was one. Which was perfect timing because Epstein was beginning to work his way into Silicon Valley. The international pedophile cabal also thought Elon Musk was a loser. Oh my God. Epstein was not always a creature of the internet. In 2010, Hollywood producer Barry Josephson asked Epstein if he knew Silicon Valley investor Ron Conaway, to which Epstein replied, "No, Silicon Valley is another world." But in 2012, he was already starting to make inroads in San Francisco because, of course, his tentacles needed to reach everywhere. He needed to have contacts everywhere. In one of the hundreds of newly released emails between Epstein and Elon Musk, Musk introduced Epstein to Google DeepMind CEO Demis Hassabis. It's unclear if the two ever formally communicated, but Epstein continued to keep tabs on Hassabis. As for Musk, contrary to what he's been saying for the last few years, he was a regular presence in Epstein's inbox. Musk's daughter corroborated some of the details about Musk's interactions with Epstein after the new emails came to light, but seems like Musk was mostly a path towards bigger fish. Interesting. It is interesting that currently the richest guy in the world was just a pathway to bigger fish. In 2012, Epstein asked British investor Ian Osborne to set up a meeting between him and Thiel and Zuckerberg. Osborne also tried to connect Epstein with Apple's Tim Cook, and in 2013, Epstein was recorded telling former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak that he should try and work with Palantir. However, the earliest actual emails between Epstein and Thiel released so far are from 2014. In an email in July 2015, Epstein connected Thiel with Sergei Belyakov, Russia's the Deputy Minister of Economic Development, because, of course, Epstein had a lot of contacts in Russia. That, of course, is also very, it seems, obvious at this point. And alleged Russian intelligence operative. In an email to Thiel a month after that, Epstein alludes to a visit at his Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. In 2015, Epstein told medical researcher and author Peter Attia, who was just named as new CBS contributor by Barry Weiss, whose wife Nellie Bowles also corresponded with Epstein, that he was having dinner with Musk, Thiel, and Zuckerberg, and in 2016, Epstein offered to share the expenses for Thiel's lawsuit against Gawker, which would eventually bankrupt the outlet. During this time, Epstein was trying to worm his way into the world of science and technology by using his connections to then director of MIT Media Lab, Joy Ito, former Harvard President Larry Summers, and LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, who Osborne in an email refers to as Fatty. Ito emailed Epstein in 2015 to tell him that he used gift funds to underwrite the Media Lab's management of Bitcoin Score software. Epstein was also an early investor in Coinbase. Oh, and in July 2013, it also showed Epstein what an anime waifu body pillow was. Because, of course, a pervert such as Epstein would be interested in body pillows. And then Epstein's dreams of statecraft were supercharged when he finally officially met Bannon in 2017. Epstein's electioneering. What is happening? Thanks to Russia's... Oh, God, Russia. Of course, Russia's involved in all this. Thanks to Russia's notorious troll farm, the Internet Research Agency, the success of huge social platforms like Facebook and YouTube, and the frenzy of the Trump campaign in the US and Brexit in the UK, Epstein's interest in overt statecraft went into overdrive. Rather than the more traditional espionage he was believed to be engaged in before the social media boom. But it's important to know that he was not some kind of political mastermind. No, he was a human trafficker first and foremost. Based on the emails to which we currently have access, Populist politics, online disinformation, cyber warfare, and cryptocurrency were all just scaffolding for his work as a financier and sex trafficker. There you go. He was a sex trafficker first and foremost. A way to destabilize the global order, make connections with the world's elites, and continue enriching himself and preying on vulnerable young girls. Apparently, Polish children were kidnapped, and there's a new group investigating who helped Epstein in the kidnapping of Polish children to be abused. Reading through his messages, it's clear that he was someone who was learning to speak the language of social media and far-right populism. At the same time, everyone else was. In 2014, a redacted correspondent suggested he had the work of a far-right Russian philosopher. What, Dugin? In 2015, Epstein allegedly started funding a French-language white nationalist YouTube channel, and he and Bannon were plotting a far-right blitz on Europe's upcoming elections. I wonder which countries. I have to ask, which countries were they trying to blitz? In March 2018, Bannon bragged that he was now advisor to far-right Italian politician Matteo Salvini, Germany's far-right alternative for Germany, AfD. Of course, that does not surprise me. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, and UK Brexiter Nigel Farage. He also said that he could pressure them to shut down any crypto legislation or anything else we want. In July 2018, Colin Estelle, who's the French language white nationalist YouTube channel? They're not named, unfortunately. I would like to know that as well. Maybe if I click here on this link. I'm in the Epstein files now. Where were you doing in 2016? Maybe this? Jean-Francois. So I guess it's this person. Yeah, that's the content creator that has been supported with the Epstein files. No, I don't know him. Who is he? I actually don't know this person. I'm not familiar. Were they banned from you? Was it's love, you idiot. Was this person's YouTube terminated or something? In July 2018, Epstein told Bannon that he was wrestling with how to get a team of hackers for Bannon and wanted to use a zero-day exploit to target crypto wallets and voting booths. And in another email that month, Epstein also alleged that Marine Le Pen's far-right Front National Party was financed by Russia. And over the next 6 months, the men continued to scheme with each other over text. In March 2019, Ron Larsen texted Epstein, trying to lift Shinzo Abe on world stage as key to Brazil's Bolsonaro. Orbán, Salvini, and Epstein texted Bannon, now at the pyramid, referring to the Louvre pyramid, with the entire government. What are your plans? This YouTuber also had a girlfriend who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. So nobody ever learned what happened to that mysterious girlfriend. She just poof, disappeared. I guess that is kind of morbidly interesting. Unanswered questions. He called her Mama JF. That's very disturbing, actually. That is a very disturbing piece of information. Were Epstein and Bannon really doing a crypto-funded far-right coalition of pro-Russian dictators across Europe? It seems that way. Or were they just LARPing as kingmakers with each other over email? And does the distinction ever matter if other powerful figures seem to believe in their project? It is nearly impossible to not get pulled deeper down the rabbit hole while reading through Epstein's emails, because whether or not he did directly influence elections across the globe, he was trying to, and he had the means and the access to believe he could. But even if we stick to what we know from previous investigations and what we can see in his newly released emails, the reality stated plainly is frankly insane, but these are the facts. Yeah, there was a very well-connected, very powerful sex trafficker that tried to affect elections all over the world. It's insanity, quite honestly. Epstein, possibly the most prolific sex trafficker in human history. Yeah, I think so. It seems like Epstein was actually the most prolific sex trafficker in human history. Spent the last decade of his life investing in technology that would help Russia, as he wrote in 2013 email, leapfrog the global community by reinventing the financial system of the 21st century. He was fascinated by websites like 4chan and technology like Bitcoin, and was personally invested in the success of far-right politicians in the US and Europe. He believed he was months away from ushering in a new world order that would allow him to continue with his monstrous passion projects like creating a super race of children with his own... What? What the fuck? I'm sorry. This feels like some super villain plot, like a movie or an anime. I'm sorry. What? He believed he was months away from ushering in a new world order that would allow him to continue with his monstrous passion projects like creating a super race of children with his own DNA. Did I misread that? This cannot be real. Was this actually a thing? And building fascist nation states to manage overpopulation and climate collapse. Holy shit. I have to... Is there an article on that? On him trying to create super children with his DNA? Epstein reportedly hoped to develop super race of humans with his DNA. What? Registered sex offender hoped to seed human race with his DNA by impregnating 20 women at a time, New York Times reports. Just 20? Wait. He hoped to seed the human race with his DNA by just impregnating 20 women? Like what? Every hour? Every day? 20 women? That's... Jeffrey Epstein, the wealthy financier accused of sex trafficking, plans to develop an improved super race of humans using genetic engineering and artificial intelligence, according to the New York... What? This cannot be real. This cannot possibly be real. But then again, it seems like he was one of the most connected people in the world. He was actually one of the most powerful people in the world. And this is just so bizarre. This seems like a super villain plot. I'm going to elevate the human race by spreading my DNA. In the aftermath of his 2008 sex trafficking conviction, Epstein hoped to seed the human race with his DNA by impregnating women at his ranch in New Mexico. One of his properties where young women, including minors, were allegedly abused, the newspaper reported in a major investigation. Musk has similar plan. Musk also wants to spread his DNA throughout the human race. Though there is little evidence the scheme ever progressed beyond fantasy, prominent scientists, including the late Stephen Hawking, regularly attended dinners, lunches, and conferences held by Epstein, the Times said. Holy shit, who was not involved with Epstein, okay? It increasingly feels like it would be easier to list all the people that were not involved with Epstein. Is it like the language guy was involved with Epstein? And by that I mean, I'm blanking out on his name. Um, the manufacturer consent guy, Chomsky. Chomsky was implicated with Epstein. Stephen Hawking, now it seems like, regularly attended his dinners. Who the hell was not involved with Epstein in some capacity? It seems like everybody was. You can name a name, and there's a probability, not a small probability, that they were involved with Epstein at some point in their life. Epstein has long been accused of sexually abusing underage girls. He also has purported connections to Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and Prince Andrew, and moved in elite social circles in New York, Florida, and elsewhere. He's currently in jail after being arrested on 6 July. He pleaded not guilty several weeks ago. How old is this article? This article is more than 6 years old. So this article was written when he was still alive, it seems. Epstein's plans around his own progeny began to be talked about in the early 2000s, according to 3 sources contacted by the Times. How old is this article exactly? Epstein told scientists and businessmen about his ambitions to use his New Mexico ranch as a base where women would be inseminated with his sperm and would give birth to his babies. Mr. Epstein's goal was to have 20 women at a time impregnated at his 33,000 square feet Zorro Ranch in a tiny town outside San Fe, the Times said. Epstein's field of study was labeled transhumanism, but it was an updated version of eugenics. Lawyer Alan Dershowitz, who defended Epstein in 2008 and has been named in a civil suit brought by Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre, told the Times he was appalled by the financiers' interest in genetic manipulation, given the Nazis' use of eugenics in the 1930s. That's... wow. Okay. He was planning to... He was... All right. Insane. Well, let's continue. Oh my God, a Polish person is a I already spotted a Polish surname. A Polish person was involved in Epstein's plan to, I don't know, impregnate all women and create a new. Yeah, it's a thing. That's a thing. Everyone speculated about whether these scientists were more interested in his views or more interested in his money. The answer is they were more interested in his money. I bet a lot of people were just interested in Epstein's money. According to the paper, Epstein's circle included the molecular engineer George Church, Murray Gell-Mann, who proposed the quark, the evolutionary biologist Stephen Jay Gould, the neurologist and author Oliver Sacks, and the theoreticist physicist Frank Wilczek. Wilczek is 100% a Polish surname. Wilczek means wolfy, a wolf, a little wolfy. That is what Wilczek means. It's 100% a Polish surname. Okay? I am ashamed. On one occasion, Epstein held a lunch at Harvard's program for evolutionary dynamics, a program he had helped fund with a $6.5 million donation in 2011. He gave $20,000 to the Worldwide Transhumanist Association, a project that now operates as Humanity Plus. I guess Humanity Plus is when Epstein's seed is in every woman and they can give birth to the new superhuman race. The Harvard cognitive psychologist Steven Pinker said he considered Epstein as an intellectual imposter. Oh wow, what a shock. Okay. The biggest child trafficker in history being an intellectual imposter. Who could have guessed? Not me. He would abruptly change the subject, ADD style, dismiss an observation with an adolescent wisecrack. Pinker told the paper, the virtual reality pioneer Jaron Lanier said Epstein's ideas did not rise to science that could be subjected to critical analysis. So basically, he just had a fantasy of complete nonsense and nobody who was a real scientist treated him seriously. The scientific community, like Trump and much of New York and Palm Beach society, would sooner forget their association with Epstein. Humanity Plus Vice Chairman Ben Goretzel, whose salary was once paid by Epstein, told The Times, I have no desire to talk about Epstein right now. The stuff I'm reading about him in the papers is pretty disturbing and goes way beyond what I thought his misdoings and kinks were. Yeesh. Or yetch. Kinks. Okay. That's... What the fuck? Once again, I have to ask. This article was amended on August 2019 because Murray Gell-Mann proposed the existence of quarks rather than discovered them, as an earlier version said. It's okay. So we have just learned that I have just learned that Epstein wanted to create a super race of children with his own DNA and building fascist nation states to manage overpopulation. And he wined and dined the world's most powerful men, none of whom seemed to have an issue with these ideas. Yeah, you want to create a super race full of your DNA? Knock yourself out. Inviting them to his island and his ranch, and made sure they were surrounded by an endless supply of young girls. And I'm just not sure what we're supposed to do with that knowledge. Yeah. I'm not so sure either. The BBC caught scam call. Well, there we go. This is quite disturbing, but it does not surprise me exactly that's the reality of the situation. I'm not exactly shocked or surprised by the fact that Mr. Epstein tried to facilitate I don't know, it seems like the legacy of Epstein in some ways is surviving and doing quite well, unfortunately, considering the direction in which the world is moving. Not to be a negative person, but Epstein might have died, but his ideas, it seems, have not exactly expired. It seems that there are people that are willing to carry his torch forward into the future. If what is written here was truly his ambition, which is all the more reason to please not vote on any far-right parties that were involved with Epstein. And we're not even close to being done. More information will come out. More people will be implicated. There's a lot of documents that are being held up yet. Still, we are just learning more and more as time goes on. And we will keep learning more and more as time will go on. Unfortunately, as much as I hate the new reality that we have come to inhabit, we will just have to, we'll see. Any questions on what we just witnessed before we move on to the next thing? Also press like on the stream. Remember to press like if you like what you see. If you enjoy this, if you're enjoying this, oh yeah, there is an important topic that I really want to talk about. There are actually a few important topics that I really want to talk about. The FBI raid on because it seems like there's an attempt to we're gonna watch we're gonna watch our YouTube video now. All right. The Humanist Report. This is apparently a big thing that's happening. Apparently, we are looking at an attempt to undermine the election process in the United States by the Trump administration. This video is from 5 days ago, but it seems that it's still pretty relevant. Estelle says, wealthy people really like to believe that their success comes from their superior constitution. Yeah, they feel like they have superior genes, superior intellect, and they are like the Ubermensch, and it would benefit humanity if they spread their super genes everywhere, which is just ludicrous and sounds like a plot of an anime, and ironically sounds like some weird plot of an anime, okay? It feels like something that you would read in fiction. Oh, this biggest child trafficker in human history that knows all the powerful politicians, artists, scientists, movie makers, plans to create a new race of superhumans by spreading his DNA, by impregnating many, many women. You tell me that doesn't feel like some fictional scenario. But apparently, reality is far weirder than any fiction that you could come up with. Okay, let's look at the FBI thing, because Epstein's dead and the people that are trying to do this are very much alive and active.
This should have people across the country absolutely shook. This is a huge deal. This is an FBI raid on the Fulton County Elections Office.
We don't know where they're being taken. We don't know what's going to happen to them. So we can no longer, and I can no longer, as chair of this board, satisfy not only the citizens of Atlanta, but the citizens of the world that those ballots are still secure. So that is a major concern that I have right now.
Fulton County is right now the target, the only county right now fighting over an election that already happened, but it is coming to a place near you. This is the beginning of the chaos of 2026 that is about to ensue.
Excellent.
Wednesday's FBI raid on an election center in Fulton County, Georgia, is a chilling reminder that the Trump regime is serious about stealing the upcoming election. And even though it feels
And the other stealing the upcoming election, but you mean the midterms, right? Are we talking about the midterms? Because there's also the looming topic of Trump floating around the idea of just having a third term, should he live long enough. He just wants to keep being president forever.
hyperbolic and downright conspiratorial to say that. It's not. As hard as it may be to digest the fact that it's come to this, it's come to this.
Yeah.
We need to believe our lying eyes.
Well, some more negative people, some more doomer people say that the United States might not even have a midterms to speak of. That, the midterms might just be a fiction, which this kind of thing certainly adds credence to the theory.
Is everything that he's doing in Fulton County, which has long been at the center of his lies about the 2020 election, is all a not so subtle attempt to create the pretext to completely subvert November's election. Nobody knows what the rationale will be, but now that they've seized ballots from local officials, all they have to do is lie and say that they finally have definitive evidence of fraud and use that as a justification.
I mean, that is what Trump actually said numerous times recently, that they will start prosecution, that they have evidence of the 2020 election being stolen, that they have definitive proof, and that they will be presenting that evidence soon. I remember there was, I don't remember on what occasion did he say it. He always just, maybe it was when he was talking about Ukraine and that it was Biden's, that Ukraine is Biden's war, and that if he would have been president, the war would have never happened, and that the election was stolen. And I believe that is when he said that he has evidence now that it was stolen and that he will be presenting the evidence. And I assume this FBI raid is part of the effort to procure such evidence, to manufacture such evidence. It's all coming together, I guess, since Trump did announce that he had evidence of fraud.
To either take over local elections in other counties that are supposedly at risk of fraud or disenfranchise voters concentrated in precincts where they claim they found fraud. They could even say that they found evidence that a foreign entity helped steal the election for Democrats in 2020. I think that's also a possibility due to the bizarre presence of Tulsi Gabbard at the raid.
Guess who showed up at this FBI raid? Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
Why? Why did she
Gabbard has nothing to do with election security. Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, but now it's actually par for the course that people that have nothing to do with their job description take part in completely different things, like ICE. ICE is not police, and yet, I actually, speaking of elections, by the way, to bolster this point, apparently there is reports that ICE will be placed as guards of election booths. ICE will be taking care, ICE will be utilized in elections. If that is not chilling, then I don't know what is. What are the implications of ICE being used as groups to be present at the election polls? The undesirables will be turned away, as possible immigrants, illegals? Will they be detained and unable to vote? Well, what is like that's really terrifying when I heard that apparently ICE will be utilized. I wonder if it made its way to any official news. ICE to guard election booths. I wonder if there's any. Trump ally threatens to turn around election polls with ICE. There you go. There you have it. There you go. 6 hours ago, I was right. We will be. I know it's interjecting. I know I'm entering a different subject during a subject. You know, I'm sort of jumping around, but it is related. An FBI raid to election sort of centers and ICE being deployed to guard election. I feel like it's not unrelated. Okay, it's not completely random what I'm doing here.
I mean, imagine, you know, you're a Hispanic voter, you're afraid you'll suddenly be put into a van and
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly what I was thinking. That if you're basically not white, not just Hispanic, you're just not white and a voter, you're gonna be intimidated by ICE being present at the polls because who knows what they will do to you. Yeah, exactly. It is intimidation, and it's definitely related to that FBI raid, in my opinion.
off to a detention center, you know, with you know, hope to prove your status later kind of thing when the ballots have closed. I mean, this is what Steve Bannon is dreaming about, and I hope it's still fantasy.
So Mikey Smith in the Mirror, Kate Ferguson from The Sun on Sunday, and of course Sarah Baxter in the United States. And Sarah, let's look at another story which is sort of making mileage where you are. It is the idea.
Insane. It's insanity that this kind of thing can be done. ICE has nothing to do with policing. ICE has nothing to do with securing elections. ICE's job is to investigate whether or not someone is an undocumented immigrant. That is it. They're just, on paper, they're just glorified border guards. That's it. There is the fact that they're being utilized for all this is just very disconcerting, to put it mildly.
Will his MAGA team find a way to tilt the odds in the American election? Is it about preserving the integrity of elections or about doing the opposite?
It's about the opposite. It's very transparent. You don't have to be a brilliant thinker to realize that it's the opposite. You don't have to be a genius to realize that.
Taking the integrity away from elections. Now, the MAGA leading light, who has been an advisor, big advisor to Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, he's been addressing this in the context of the ICE agents who are in America being accused of brutal tactics against suspects.
Well, not just accused; they murdered citizens. The actions of ICE at this point go far beyond just being accused of things. It's now about action. Well documented action, mind you.
And all of this, they're very unpopular with one side of the argument, to put it mildly. He said this.
You're damn right. We're going to have ICE surround the polls come November. We're not going to sit here and allow you to steal the country again. And you can.
I've seen this clip. I've seen this, and this is why I wanted to make it part of the broader segment about the Trump administration undermining the upcoming elections.
And cry and throw your toys out of the pram all you want, but we will never again allow an election to be stolen.
There you go. And also perpetuating the conspiracy theory that in 2020 the election was stolen.
Well, that was pretty clear, wasn't it, Sarah Baxter?
It was very clear, wasn't it?
Agents surrounding the polls. And how's that gone down?
Well, just imagine what it would be like. We had masked, armed men surrounding British polling stations. I mean, this is the situation that Americans might have to confront.
Yeah, I'd be nervous. I'm gonna be honest. If I were a person of color, I'd be nervous about going to the poll. And there are already a lot of things being done to make it as hard as possible for certain groups to vote, mind you.
And, you know, whether
The
or not
roads to voting is already made very steep to certain groups of people in the United States.
ICE is used to try and prevent people with perfect legal right to be in the US and vote, i.e. US citizens, from actually exercising their democratic rights. I mean, imagine, you know, you're a Hispanic voter, you're afraid you'll suddenly be put into a van and carted off to a detention center.
Yeah,
you know,
and not allowed to vote, basically taking away your rights as citizen.
with you know, hope to prove your status later kind of thing when the ballots have closed. I mean, this is what Steve Bannon is dreaming about, and I hope it's still fantasy. The other dangerous thing, there are two other dangerous things that Donald Trump has actually been doing. One, he's been speaking about nationalizing the elections. Now, I remember in the middle of the 2020 election when he said, "Stop the count," in the middle of the night.
What does that mean, nationalizing the elections? I am not sure what that means. Estelle says, married women who changed their last name will have to re-register before voting using their birth certificate. If the measure passes.
And he really wanted goons to go in and seize voting ballot boxes from inner city areas in places like Philadelphia, Detroit, Atlanta, and so forth. This is what he now really wants to be able to do as well, not just prevent people from having access to the polls who have the right to vote, but maybe seizing ballot boxes later to do the count themselves by people friendly to MAGA. Well,
of course, that feels very legitimate, very, yeah, that seems perfect to me, of course.
That sound to you? And thirdly, he recently had Tulsi Gabbard, his director of national intelligence, who's supposed to focus on foreign threats.
There you go. Partake in a raid, on a poll, on office.
Domestic ones. Seizing alongside officials who seized records from the 2020 vote in Georgia. That Georgia vote has been relitigated millions of times, hand counted and all the rest.
Yeah, I wonder what they're going to do with those seized votes. I wonder what they're going to do. I wonder what narrative is going to be spanned. I wonder what evidence will be manufactured from this. I wonder. Especially in light of Trump announcing that he has evidence of the 2020 election being stolen.
No fraud has been found, but Tulsi Gabbard seems to be determined to find it. You know, it's very...
And you know what? They might just find it. You know, if they really have the determination, they will find it. They will find something.
Disturbing.
And when the president talks about federalizing elections, the elections are in the Constitution. They are the province of states of the Union, not the federal government. What is the fear that might mean? I guess one of the things on the list is going to be about turning up on the day and casting a vote in person and not by mail.
That's right. I mean, Donald Trump hates mail-in ballots. He thinks that enables...
Many countries have mail voting, by the way, many countries, and it's not a problem.
People who are friendly to the Democrats to vote and gain access to the polls. You know, there are certain things...
Yeah, everybody should have access to the polls, okay? Everybody who can vote should have access to... What is this idea that certain people should not have access to the polls? Not a very good idea in a democratic country, supposedly.
Do to tighten up, like voter ID, etc.
Yeah.
Is mostly used anyway, but there are a few places where it isn't. But he's going way beyond that, and basically, he's pretty much said in advance of every election, if it doesn't go his way, it's because of fraud.
Yeah, of course he's gonna say that.
And he's now insisting he won the 2024 election by a landslide, which he didn't. And, the whole thing is just would be palpably absurd if it wasn't so dangerous.
What is the gain to the president in reopening the 2020 election and sending?
That's a silly question. He can, first of all, the easiest thing to answer this to this question is that he can start prosecuting people who he can deem as criminals who stole the election. That he has evidence of malpractice, of crime being committed, and then he can prosecute his political enemies for the crime of stealing the election. That's one thing that he can do with this, for one.
Into Georgia to look at the ballots that were cast in that election.
He can punish those who have rigged the election.
I suppose it's part of the process of making the case that the election system can't be trusted and needs to be taken over by the federal government, and that's
that as well. But also the punishment, the legal punishment of those who he will see as those who have done it.
Well, exactly so. This is actually part of throwing doubt again on that result in 2024. Although the joke is, Donald Trump was the president in 2020.
By the way, before the results came in, Trump was already preparing to declare that the 2024 elections were rigged as well. If anybody remembers that, he was already setting the stage for the declaration that there was foul play in the 2024 elections as well. But once the results came in favorable to him, he said, no, it was all good. Actually, the whole process was perfectly fine. But he was actually sowing the seeds for the preparation of announcing that it was not okay, that it was completely rigged and there was foul play involved. He was definitely preparing himself for that.
2020, when he claims the vote was rigged, Joe Biden was the president in 2024 and lost. The Democrats then lost. If they were good at rigging elections, you'd think they'd have won the 2024 election.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, when Trump lost, he was president, and somehow under his watch, the elections were rigged. So make it make sense.
Donald Trump won it. But no, he definitely wants to set the ground for querying any bad result in the midterm elections and, quite honestly, probably challenging it. So that if he can throw enough doubt, if it's a close run thing and he's about to lose the House of Representatives, he can actually stop the count, so to speak, the thing he tried to do before, seize ballot boxes, say we're federalizing them, we're taking this out of the hands of...
and then declare, oh, we won. Thank you.
States who can't be trusted, and then it will go to the courts. Now, it's definitely unconstitutional to behave as he's threatening to do.
But he does not care about the Constitution, so that's not even an argument at this point.
The Supreme Court, with a heavy Republican majority, agree? Who knows? Republicans used to be in favor of states' rights, but now seem to adopt the position that they're in favor of whatever Donald Trump says.
I'm just trying to imagine the implications of seizing voting machines on the night of an election. It barely bears thinking about. Anyway, Mikey, you are such a close America watcher. What are you thinking now?
Well, I mean, I think my thoughts about the possibility of elections in America in the near future, and they are that I have long said that the 2028 election, I'd be amazed if it takes place, and the 2026 midterm elections will be extremely compromised. People have been warning about this for a while, and they've been suggesting... Yeah,
there are very serious steps being taken to compromising the upcoming elections.
As is now doesn't seem unreasonable that what's been happening in Minnesota and in other Democrat-run states where ICE have been surged in to, on the face of it, deal with illegal immigrants, but these are places that don't have a high level of immigration, let alone illegal immigration. The suggestion is they've been sent there as a dry run to start the intimidation of people and to make people scared of ICE so that they can be deployed at polling stations during the midterms as an intimidation tactic. And it's simply the suggestion is that they don't want people to turn up because they're afraid that they'll get bundled into a van and taken to a torture prison in El Salvador.
I mean, this is not exactly an illegitimate fear, considering how ICE has been behaving. It is absolutely not an illegitimate fear. I find this fear to be quite legitimate, in fact.
Which is not, at this point, something that events this week, things that both the president and Steve Bannon, who always says the quiet part out loud, none of that has been overtaken by what's happened this week.
Yeah. Can I ask a question, Sarah? I've seen, like everyone else, those images of ICE out on the street, which is terrifying. I think they're really terrifying to a British audience who are not used to seeing, you know, so-called like immigration enforcement officers, cops being so heavily armed. I mean, they're absolutely terrifying. They look like they're at the front line of Ukraine or some kind of war zone. But obviously there has been a big backlash in America to that, and I just
and people have died, and probably people will continue dying.
Does it look like we're going to see Trump particularly row back more in terms of the deploying of ICE?
No, I don't think so. When asked directly if ICE is being too violent, if ICE is deploying too brutal tactics, Trump's response was that ICE is not doing enough. So if anything, Trump would love to increase the presence of ICE if he could have his way. Not go back.
Or will they be used in this tactic? So,
he would love to increase actually the use of ICE, in my opinion.
The backlash been so big that he's going to have to really scale them back.
I don't think he will personally, but
you answer that, Sarah. I just want to play you this. This is the so-called border czar, Tom Homan. He describes himself in that way as border czar, and he announced the withdrawal of 700 ICE agents from, the epicenter of this controversy, now Minnesota. Have a listen.
We have made significant progress under the direction of President Trump, working with state and local officials here in Minnesota. We currently have an unprecedented number of counties communicating with us now and allowing ICE to take custody of illegal aliens before they hit the street.
This does not actually mean anything. That pulling them back in this particular instance does not mean a scaling back of the use of ICE overall. Historically, when tyrants met pushback, they would scale back on their action and they're slowly introducing the measure, but worse. Like the biggest historical example of that would be the collectivization in the USSR, where Stalin first introduced the collectivization. The Ukrainian farmers and many other farmers protested, pushed back in a very aggressive way, and Stalin was actually forced to scale back on the thing, to walk away and say, we are too full from our success. We have succeeded so much with this collectivization thing that we actually have to stop it for a bit. And then he stopped for a bit. And then through certain coercion tactics, through certain policies, he started reintroducing the collectivization slowly, like boiling a frog. And before anybody knew it, it was back worse than before. So just because agents are being pulled back or are planned to be pulled back from this particular hot situation where there's huge pushback does not indicate that Trump plans to scale back on the use of ICE overall. It does not follow that. If that makes sense.
The state prisons already cooperate with ICE on this coordinated transfer of custody, and we thank them for that partnership, and we plan to do more with them. Given this increase in unprecedented collaboration, and as a result of the need for less law enforcement officers to do this work in a safer environment, I have announced effective immediately we will draw down 700 people effective today, 700 law enforcement personnel.
So, Sarah, what's going on? What is going on here? Is there more cooperation between state and local law enforcement and authorities and the federal government and the...
I feel like it's more damage control, to be honest, considering the pushback from the populace. But
federal agents of ICE?
I'm a bit more cynical. I'm a bit more jaded when it comes to these things.
You know, what you're witnessing is a climb down. America is still a democracy, and people power is behind this. Tom Honan has basically said that ICE is going to revert to its mission of going after the worst of the worst, i.e. criminals who are in the US illegally and deported. There's quite a bit of support for deporting them. What there wasn't is just going and chasing, arresting kids, chasing their parents, making people hide, comparisons.
Using children as bait to supposedly lure out undocumented immigrants. That's been done. Using children as bait to catch their parents.
Anne Frank in her attic, having to hide because they're afraid of getting snatched when ICE is in the neighborhood. But you know what? 700 agents are being withdrawn. 2,000 are going to remain in Minneapolis.
There you go.
And as Mike said, Minneapolis is not a center of huge number of illegal immigrants. So this is very much a bid to take over Democratic-run cities. And yes, there is going to be more cooperation with Tom Honan if he's serious about just going after the worst of the worst. But it also shows that if, Trump's always testing what he can get away with. We saw that magnified a zillion times on January the 6th, 2021, when the storming of the Capitol. And at that time, there was lots of talk then. He was being advised by certain people, why don't you use the Insurrection Act? Why don't you, stop the vote, seize ballot boxes, etc. He didn't have the nerve to do it then, and he won't have the nerve to do it in future if there's sufficient resistance. Will there be? Let's see.
Well, that gets you back to your point.
There has to be resistance.
Mikey, where you're saying you don't expect to see a general election in 2028. Now that's the stuff of Netflix drama. It is difficult to imagine, but you do believe that's...
You know what? Anything's possible. Anything's possible in the world that we're currently living in. I would not discount anything. Anything that sounds insane, we have to accept that it's a possibility at this point. We should not just discount anything. We should prepare ourselves. We should steel ourselves to rather to push back against it rather than just dismiss it happening out of hand, in my opinion.
Maybe the destination?
I mean, it's difficult to imagine, but not if you look back at what Donald Trump tried to do last time round. Last time he lost an election, he refused to accept the result. I would be stunned if he allows an election to take place now, because he would have to leave office anyway, and I think he has no intention of leaving office at the end of his term.
I think so.
Okay.
I'm just kind of open-jawed, really. Like, I don't know. I don't actually know what to say to that. I don't know if I have an opinion on how likely that is. Certainly, if that were the case, then that would be jaw-dropping. But I'm afraid I don't.
But
I'm afraid I've supported this view for a long time, that there'll be some sort of incident that means that Donald Trump, invokes some kind of emergency powers around the time when he's supposed to be leaving office that means that he somehow doesn't, or that he postpones the election.
Believe that. I definitely believe that's a possibility. And I think people should be ready to push back against it.
I don't think he's going to try and stand for a constitution-breaking third term, although Steve Bannon, who, by the way, is in the...
Who knows? I would not put it past Donald Trump either. I would not completely dismiss the possibility that he might actually want to serve a third term.
Epstein files, but is acting like he's got nothing to hide. Pache, my point earlier. I don't think he's going...
Especially since he's been joking about it already. Trump has been joking about his third term on several occasions.
To
quote unquote joking.
Actually try and run again for an unconstitutional third term. I think he'll find a way to delay things.
Yeah, and again, I'll just imagine the way that will play in the streets, the cities, and the states of the United States of the Union. The uproar, which you say has driven the federal government to step back, to retreat over the deployment of ICE officers in Minneapolis. It would be a tea party compared to an operation, the reaction to an operation like that.
Yes, so that's why it comes down to what I was saying before, that people need to be aware of the fact that Trump is constantly testing people's resistance. And
there should be always resistance. People should be ready to resist.
With every step he takes, people, he tries a bit harder. Now he's stepping back a little bit. He even said a little bit, not that much, in Minneapolis. He used the word a bit.
Yeah.
He tends to step back, try again. We've seen this with Greenland as well. Has he really given up his ambitions for it?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
We don't know, but he did back down in the face of concerted pressure. He is capable of changing his mind and backing down. So it's worth calling out.
I don't think it's a matter of him changing his mind. I think that it's a matter of him being forced to take certain actions, whether he likes it or not. It's not a matter of him changing his mind on things, I don't think.
What we think he's up to.
And how much is this conversation a part of the national conversation where you are in the United States? I mean, I see it online. I see activists, I see thinkers, I see
people like Trump are not to be persuaded to change their mind. He has to be put in a position where he has to take certain actions, whether he likes it or not. He has to respect other places' sovereignty, whether he likes it or not. It should not be about him gracefully just changing his mind.
Is on the, as it were, the center left of American politics, just airing these very thoughts. How far is it there in the conversation you see on the networks every day?
Well, not as much as, maybe in Britain in some ways. But on the other hand, let's think about those No Kings protests that took place last autumn. That brought out hundreds of thousands of people on the streets of major cities and actually small communities as well, all over the United States. So, there is vigilance about preserving the American Constitution, preserving American democracy.
As there should be.
I think, I still have a great faith in the American people, in their ability to
I have some faith.
Do the right thing and choose the right thing. And in the end, I think this will limit the extent of Trump's ambition. But he feels unstoppable.
All right, let's continue watching the other. Let's continue watching this about the raid.
Abbott has even been in charge of dismantling what was called the Foreign Malign Influence Center to try to make sure foreign countries don't interfere.
So ballots being seized in Georgia.
In our elections. This complete
Hello, Emily. Yes.
Trump loyalist somehow popping up on an FBI raid. What the heck was she doing?
Great question. I wouldn't put it past them to coerce Maduro into signing some confession about Venezuelan interference in the 2020 election as part of a plea deal between him and the feds, because Sidney Powell, one of his attorneys, who pled guilty, by the way, to election interference herself in Georgia and defended herself by saying no reasonable person would take her claims about the 2020 election as fact, said that Dominion voting machines were part of an international election rigging conspiracy.
Of course.
Involving communist money from countries.
There you go. This is going to be the line now.
Including Venezuela and Cuba. And when you also take into account the fact that Trump is planning a legal regime change in Cuba as well by the end.
Yeah, I can, but let's go through this.
Of the year, at least according to a report by the Wall Street Journal, he can now boldly say that his intelligence director has concluded that foreign actors did indeed steal the 2020 election. And leaders of said culpable countries that he's kidnapped are willing to testify on his behalf. And in order to safeguard elections, the federal government will now be taking control of all elections going forward, seeing as how it's now a matter of national security.
Yeah.
This is obviously conjecture. I don't actually know what the lie is going to be that they go with, but we do know that they will most definitely lie. As law professor Rick Hasen put it in a comment to ProPublica, the idea that federal officials would seize ballots in an attempt to prove fraud is especially dangerous in this context when we know there is no fraud because the Georgia's 2020 election has been extensively counted, recounted, and
in all those places that Trump challenged, it has been checked, and it has been Trump's claim has been refuted time and time again, which is why he never won a single court case when he tried to challenge the results of the election.
Investigated. And we can say with certainty that this is the case because all 60 of Trump's election fraud cases were dismissed, including by judges that he appointed. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure that they would have loved to help him rat fuck that election, but you have to at least give them some evidence so that way they have a defense in the event they're prosecuted for breaking the law for you. But they had nothing. Zip, zilch, nada. They've privately admitted that their fake electors were fraudulent, so Trump was lying and he knew he was lying. And even though Trump's fixation on the 2020 election might seem pathetic and petulant at face value, because it is, obviously, we shouldn't just naively assume that he's only whining or sympathy farming because it's so much more nefarious than that. He's deliberately invoking that election to raise doubts about future elections.
And he is also trying to persecute those responsible for rigging the elections. That is also part of it. He openly said it very recently.
To give the regime legitimacy that they need to steal the next one. And I think that John Ossoff explained this well and explained why they're talking about Georgia and why it's so crucial to the regime for this effort.
His conspiracy theories about the 2020 election have been based in Georgia from the very start. Georgia is where he called the Secretary of State and said, find me the votes that he needed to win in a state he had lost. So much of the big lie that led to the January 6th sacking of the United States Capitol, that had a mob seeking the Speaker of the House and the Vice President to lynch them, originated in his lies about the state of Georgia. And here he has the FBI, which there are so many hardworking, diligent public servants in FBI field offices all across the country, but its headquarters now in the thrall of these political appointees, Kash Patel and Bongino and this guy from Missouri in the deputy role, who are partisan political actors, raiding this election office in Georgia.
The seeds are being sown to do some foul play during the midterms, as well as to prosecute political enemies.
Seizing all of this information, all of these records, taking it who knows where, chain of custody now broken. And here's the thing. This is a shot across the bow at the midterm elections. He tried to steal power when he lost it in 2020. We have to be prepared for all kinds of schemes and shenanigans. We have to be prepared for him to try to deprive people of their voting rights.
And he's exactly right. They're going to try to do it. It's just a matter of them getting their ducks in a row to make sure that they can actually pull it off.
And using ICE is going to one of the ways to do that, to turn people away, or to just, as someone has mentioned, to drive people away to a detention center so that they cannot vote.
This time. And again, I want to stress that I don't know how they're going to try to do it, but I can assure you that they're not doing all of this for nothing. Remember, Dominion voting machines, also at the center of Trump's big lie, was sold to a company named Liberty Vote, run by a former GOP election official. Earlier this month, Trump actually admitted that he regrets not seizing voting machines in 2020. So now that Dominion is owned by an ally, whether or not Trump will even have to seize voting machines if he wants to is an open question, because their new leadership might just hand them over willingly. But let's not forget that Pam Bondi was basically trying to extort Minnesota by saying ICE would draw down in Minneapolis if the state handed over their voter roll data so the Justice Department could, quote, help them, quote, clean rolls of ineligible voters, which is not their fucking job, by the way. And shortly before that, we learned about this from Politico.
Where have I heard this before? It's not their job. It's not their job about people that are sent by Trump.
Quote, 2 members of Elon Musk's Doge team working at the Social Security Administration were secretly in touch with an advocacy group seeking to overturn election results in certain states, and one signed an agreement that may have involved using Social Security data to match state voter rolls. But they won't have to worry about stealing our personal data from every state because, as this map from Newsweek illustrates, plenty of states have already made it easy enough for them by just volunteering that information to the federal government.
Of course.
And states that are refusing to hand that information over are being sued by the government, so that way they're forced to hand it over. And in addition to all of this, the Trump regime might get another assist from the Supreme Court soon, because if they actually deal the final death blow to the Voting Rights Act by striking down Section 2, which would take us back to the Jim Crow status quo, by the way, Republicans would be able to legally disenfranchise black and brown voters again. And it would net them nearly 200 additional seats across 10 states in the South and 19 more at the federal level, according to a 2024 analysis.
Make America great again.
By Fair Fight Action and Black Voters Matter Fund. So the Trump regime is carefully cultivating conditions for the complete subversion of our elections before our very eyes, and that should obviously concern everyone. You're not going to violate
does concern me, definitely.
The Constitution with a federal takeover of elections if you're not planning to rig said elections. And at this point in time, I feel like sunken cost fallacy indicates that Trump is indeed going to go as far as he needs to go in order to ensure that the election is rigged, because he's broken so many laws.
If you're in the US, I'd be more alarmed than I am. And I am alarmed, even though I'm on the other side of the globe.
If he ever is out of power, he's going to have to fear prosecution for the rest of his life. So in order to ensure that never happens, he's going to do what he needs to do to stay in power. And if that means breaking even more laws, I don't think that that's beneath him. And this tin pot dictator is going to do that because he's admitted that he doesn't want there to be an election. In a recent interview,
the president
admitted that Republicans...
The president expressed frustration that his Republican Party could lose control of the U.S. House of Representatives or the Senate in his year's midterm election, citing historical trends that have seen the party in power lose seats in the second year of a presidency. It's some deep psychological thing, but when you win the presidency, you don't win the midterms, Trump said. He boasted that he had accomplished so much that when you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election. Fuck me.
We're going to lose the midterms. It concluded, when you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election. So never mind a free and fair election. He doesn't even think that...
Yeah, there should not be one in the first place. Maybe he thinks that we've accomplished so much. He has accomplished so much as a president that maybe there should not be a presidential election anymore. Maybe Trump should be president for life because he has accomplished so much.
We should have one for the sake of political theater, when even the most totalitarian regimes in the world hold fake elections at a minimum, but he doesn't even think...
like Putin. Putin holds those very fake elections.
That the charade is necessary because he doesn't even want to pretend that he has anything but absolute control. And his comment was predictably dismissed as a joke once again. And when Caroline Livet was confronted about how fucked up it is that he said that, she basically just dismissed it out of hand.
You said that he was joking about canceling the elections, but Americans for generations have fought and died for democracy, for this democracy. Are you saying that the president finds the idea of canceling elections funny?
Yep.
Andrew, were you in the room? No, you weren't. I was in the room. I heard the conversation, and only someone like you would take that so seriously and pose it as a question in that way.
Oh, you don't like that he said that? Well, fuck you. Next question.
True. That is exactly what happened.
Like, they're not even bothering to hide the contempt that they have for the Constitution. And after that, President Neck Pussy himself talked about running for an illegal third term again.
I think we have the best poll numbers we've ever had. But think of it, if I were to run again, would anybody...
If I run again...
Actually, fuckface, you have the worst poll numbers you've ever had. And I get that reality isn't really your forte, but that doesn't mean that you get to dictate the truth for the rest of us. Like, you might be a dictator, but you can't dictate reality for those of us with eyes who live in this plane of existence. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a stretch to say that there's a non-zero chance that the November election is not going to be free and fair. The only question is whether or not
what the people will do about it. That is my question.
they've done enough to sufficiently rig it to the point where they'll be able to successfully keep Democrats out of power.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that question, nor can I tell you how they're going to try to do it exactly, but it's obvious that they are going to try to do it. So be on the lookout for that, because the series finale of America might air a lot sooner than a lot of us expected.
There we have it. It's a tense situation. We have an announcement that ICE agents will be at the polls. Georgia has seen a seizure of ballots. We'll see. We'll see what will happen at the midterms. I suggest you stay vigilant. If you're not white, definitely take an ID with you. Definitely take a document with you. Definitely take something. These days everybody has a phone. Definitely record any interaction with ICE. If you bring someone with you who will record your interaction with ICE of any sort. That is my advice when it comes to the possible ICE presence at the voting booths or the polls, because that's one way to counter them. Bring someone with you, have that someone have a recording device, and have a document so that we will not be able to be pulled away. Present the document on the spot. I'm not sure what other advice I can give. As to the seizing of the ballots, I definitely agree that this will be used to both cast doubt on the upcoming midterm election, but as well it's going to be weaponized to try to prosecute the perceived parties at fault for stealing the 2022 election. That is going to be a thing. So we are looking forward to a very tumultuous period. All I can say is, as a person that lives in Poland, Godspeed, fingers crossed, and I hope that the worst case scenario will not come to pass, which I am always very much prepared for the worst to come, especially since as of the last few years, all that I've been served is the worst coming to pass. So we'll see. I definitely think that this was worth covering. I definitely think that this is worth talking about. I definitely think that we should keep monitoring this particular situation. I'll go to the toilet, and when I'm back, we're going to, I suppose, watch Trump shit himself. Apparently, Trump shot himself, and that happened, and the journalists were thrown out. So we'll be back. We'll be back. The situation is pretty shitty in more ways than one. We're back. We're back to see what has been the US president up to lately. And apparently he's been up to something. Let me see. Suggestion. Let me see. Apparently because the US president is the president of the world. The US president has apparently soiled himself. At which point the press has been asked to leave.
How about Waltz? I mean, he's not qualified to be doing this. He is. I mean, you have to look at the vice president very seriously. And you compare him and J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, number one at Yale, you know, the whole thing. I mean, high academic. I mean, J.D. is doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah, and he was with us on the yesterday, joined us from the Washington, D.C. area. One of the things about Fox and Friends, we've been doing the show for like 28 years. But one of the biggest days was the day you became president. And we actually got to do the very first interview at the White House after you were sworn in. And it was a great interview.
Oh boy. Guy in the far right definitely smelled it. This guy's so full of shit, it's playing out of both ends. Okay, is that a thing that has been reported on? I want to see if this has been reported on. Trump poops himself. Fox News. No credible evidence Trump pooped himself during. I guess that's a thing. I guess this has not been made. No credible evidence Trump pooped himself during executive order signing. Well, I guess that's it when it comes to this. This is interesting. I hate Trump, but this video is fake. I just watched the full video from the original source, and it doesn't make those noises. And there is no stain. Ah, okay. I guess that's it. I guess that's it then. I would have to watch the whole original footage, and I frankly don't care to. Quite honest with you. There's more serious news to cover. Ah, yes. Stop lying. Greenland lawmaker clashes with Trump envoy. Hungarian court gives non-binary German 8 years for attacking neo-Nazis. This is the new brave new world that we live in. Brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Non-binary German, 8 years for attacking neo-Nazis. A German far-left activist who identifies as non-binary has been sentenced to 8 years in prison by a Hungarian court for attacking neo-Nazis. Let that sink in. Maya T's trial has been headline news in Germany over fears of injustice in Hungary, a country with a poor record on LGBT rights. Well, no kidding. Hungary's right-wing Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, who has banned pride marches and sought to criminalize LGBT propaganda, has been accused of making political mileage out of the case. Also, Viktor Orbán has failed miserably in his banning of LGBT marches, because the recent march had hundreds of thousands of people in it, and a lot of them were not even part of the LGBT. They just came in support, and They were against the banning of the march on principle. And it was a glorious thing to see. So many people flooded the streets on that day. I watched it live. I reported on it live. It was great. So right now, Viktor Orban is looking for new ways to demonize the LGBT. And one of the ways is to criminalize a person who has attacked neo-Nazis. He repeatedly called for a tough sentence for Maya T ahead of parliamentary elections in April that could see Orban ousted from power. Leftist politicians in Germany decried the Budapest court's ruling on Wednesday as disproportionate. Many had earlier visited the defendant to show solidarity. Yeah, for 8 years, the Hungarian government has politicized proceedings against Maya T from the very start. And it's like, is the person gonna serve those 8 years, or is it on, usually with probation or something? Greens MP Helge Limburg posted on the X platform, it's a bad day for the rule of law, and it's a bad day for the rule of law within the European Union, because at the end of the day, Hungary is still a part of the European Union. Terrorist organization. Yes, I think the LGBT has been declared terrorist, just like in Russia. Is that a thing? Maya T was convicted of taking part in a series of attacks on far-right activists in Budapest in February 2023, and also of belonging to a criminal organization. The Antifa East anti-fascist collective of Eastern Germany is among the far-left organizations banned by Orban's government as a terrorist organization. Yes, the anti-fascist organizations are terrorists, and the biggest act of terror that they could have committed was attacking neo-Nazis. You cannot make this up. It is impossible to make this crap up. According to prosecutors, Maya T was one of around 20 people involved in Antifa East who targeted neo-Nazis. They believed to have taken part in a nationalist rally. The Day of Honor rallies, a pan-European far-right gathering held every year in the Hungarian capital. Following the event 2 years ago, 5 attacks left 9 people injured, some seriously. The assaults involved batons, a hammer, and pepper spray, prosecutors said, and resulted in broken bones and head injuries. Investigators described the weapons used as capable of causing death, urging a 24-year sentence for Maya T for what they said was an attempt to cause life-threatening injuries. Hunger strike. Maya T's case came to popular attention in Germany when the activists went on hunger strike last year over conditions in prison. The protests led to left-wing politicians in Germany claiming an LGBT person could not expect fair treatment in Hungarian judicial system. Germany's highest court ruled that Maya T's 2024 extradition had been unlawful on rights grounds. After the 8-year sentence was handed down on Wednesday, Maya T's father described the trial as political and designed to muster support for Orban in Hungary's approaching parliamentary election, because I guess Hungary is just a place where human rights are an afterthought. Again, in the European Union, that is supposed to adhere to certain principles, to certain beliefs. That is the unfortunate reality that, again, we find ourselves in. And this creates a lack of unity within the European Union. Unity that is desperately needed right now, when human rights are being trampled upon I would like to know the details of this whole Day of Honor fight between the neo-Nazis and Antifa activists. I would certainly like to know how that whole thing transpired, because I definitely do not trust the Hungarian courts that I have represented the event fairly. I definitely do not trust the Hungarian courts to represent the thing fairly, okay? I don't think it's ridiculous for me to say. Is it ridiculous for me to say? I don't think so. Right? I don't think it's unfair. Thoughts? Any thoughts? This is the person. We've been streaming for over 11 hours. We've been streaming slop and games, and we have in total I have been live for over 11 hours. Interesting that the court hasn't condemned them for being non-binary specifically. I think that would have been a bit much, but I think it definitely has something to do with that. It is what it is. Oh no, Brown, Mr. Brown. Russia will keep fighting until Kyiv gives in to demands, Kremlin says. Which was obvious from the start. It was obvious from the beginning that Russia would continue fighting until Ukraine gives in to demands. That was pretty obvious. Okay? We all knew. We all knew that would be the case. And by we all knew, I mean at least that I knew. Oh. Do we have anything else? Do we have anything else that I would like to cover? Estelle, you should get me a Riverboat Jack raid. What is Riverboat Jack up to while we're at it?
Aren't you gay?
Oh.
I am gay. It's true. I am gay, destroyer of worlds. I'm a lesbian and find Luigi attractive. Unironically, if you build Luigi Mangione as like a kind of soft butch lesbian,
I'm gonna write.
The gay ladies would be all over.
Are you going to stream for much longer? If you can get me a raid from Riverboat Jack, yes.
True. It's true. Yes, yeah, you guys understand.
There you go. I wrote in the chat that I demand a collaboration.
Butch Luigi could ravage me.
Let's see if we'll get a response.
Lucy Hayes, hello. I also am gay. It's true. Also, it is time for us to have a collab of some sort. I agree. I gotta be honest, I am stretched so thin right now that I would charitably call myself teetering on the verge of a mental breakdown. But hopefully ice is ramping down in the Twin Cities, and when I have a little bit more sanity, I would love to collab.
Perfect.
Lucy Hayes in chat. An oil painting with a gold leaf halo over Luigi would go crazy. I'm pretty sure someone already made that.
It is AM EST. It is midnight EST right now.
Like I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like somebody already made this.
Jesus Christ, Luigi.
I'll be heading back to Ukraine soon, so maybe we shall collab while I'm there. Sounds great.
Perfect. See? I'm doing my best as my own agent. Okay, nobody took the mantle of being my agent, so I had to take things into my own hands. Perfect. I don't think Luigi is a hero. Yeah, I don't think so either. It's also... Oh, the store is open now. The store is open now. You know who is a hero? Do you know who the real hero is that we need and deserve? Lucy is a hero. Heroine. Perfect. Sake Tanuki, I need...
Butch Luigi would ravish me. Right before. I'm really stretched right now.
Oh God.
Where's my Sake Tanuki?
No, you're not banned. You might have top chat on instead of live chat though.
It's been done now, but Jack usually streams like 5 a.m. because I feel asleep.
Common whoopsie doodle in the chat.
Listen, I've been streaming for
the 2 tier 1 subs and for the reminder to be more mindful about
I've been streaming for 11 hours. Let me see the page actually. Okay? Okay? Where is the does the page have a timer?
Short for you to react? Sure. I would recommend that you I don't think links are allowed in YouTube chat, but you could hop over to the Riverboat chat, which is riverboat.gg, to send it, or just tell me what it's called and I can search.
I've literally been streaming for like 11 hours or so. I guess we can cover Brown. Your favorite Polish politician, right? You know who Grzegorz Braun is, right? Do any of you know Grzegorz Braun? Are you familiar with Grzegorz Braun's shenanigans? You familiar? Hypers in chat or whatever the equivalent is if you know who Grzegorz Braun is. This one-eyed bandit. I don't even know what happened to his eye. The famous, I don't know, analyzer of Star Wars movies who regularly, whenever there's a new Star Wars movie is meets the same people in public who ask him, hey, is Yoda Jewish? And then he goes on a rant about the given Star Wars movies, but never answers the question if Yoda is in fact Jewish. But he always gives a big review of the newest movie. No political party in Poland wants anything to do with ultra-right-wing Catholic nationalist Grzegorz Braun, yet no party can afford to ignore him, as his support edges towards double digits. Braun has become a disruptive force whose isolation has not contained his influence but is reshaping how every major party plans and campaigns, which is horrible because Grzegorz Braun is a pro-Russian shill. Grzegorz Braun has been seen with Russian spies. Grzegorz Braun's party is openly pro-Russian, anti-Ukraine. Grzegorz Braun has coined the slogan, "Stop the Ukrainization of Poland," and he has been known to tackle a Christmas tree, attack it physically, because it had Ukrainian decorations on it. And he also assaulted a menorah with a fire extinguisher during Hanukkah. Those are his biggest feats. Those are his biggest achievements. Polling close to 10%, Brown's Confederation of the Polish Crown has stormed across the parliamentary threshold of 5% at a moment when the Catholic traditional civic coalition KO, Law and Justice, Peace duopoly is weakening. While Donald Tusk's centrist civic coalition treats Brown as beyond the bounds of democratic legitimacy, the right in Poland, made up of the traditional conservative Law and Justice and the twin-engined Confederation of the Nationalist National Movement and the Liberation New Hope, refused to work with him, less because of ideology and more due to electoral calculation. Even as a pariah, Brown is influencing campaign strategy, rhetoric, and coalition planning across the political spectrum. In other words, there are parties that are adopting his rhetoric. They will not work with him, but they will adopt some of his rhetoric because they want to swipe his voters. That's basically what's going on. It has been going on for a while. I am deeply disappointed. I am deeply disturbed by this development, but that is unfortunately the Polish political landscape that we are finding ourselves in. This paradox of not accepting him at all, but at the same time adopting some of his ideals, taking them on board, especially on the right, in order to gain. Brown occupies a unique paradox. He's simultaneously the most isolated figure in the Sejm, the lower house of the Polish parliament, and one of its fastest growing political brands. The recent party congress signaled that his party is no longer an improvised protest vehicle, but an organized electoral project capable of sustaining a national platform, which is very depressing and very telling of how bad things are when it comes to shaping people's opinion on things, when it comes to shaping people's political affiliation. For the first time in the post-1989 era, Poland has a radical, openly pro-Russian party polling well above the 5% threshold, which, again, extremely depressing, extremely telling, extremely dangerous. Brown's status as a contaminant rather than a standard competitor was cemented by a series of high-profile provocations. Most notable was the 2023 incident where he used a fire extinguisher to douse Hanukkah candles in the Sejm, and an act that triggered international condemnation and reinforced his image as a political extremist. This history of taboo breaking, including statements framed by many commentators as Holocaust denial, has created an informal cordon sanitaire around him. This is him. That is him. Why Brown is isolated and by whom? And of course, he is at the forefront of the so-called Polexit movement. The movement centered around the idea that Poland should leave the European Union. The isolation around Brown is not a single unified doctrine, but a collection of different strategic calculations. For Civic Coalition, the isolation is reputational and systemic. Brown is viewed as a fundamentally incompatible with democratic standards, not only because of his radical positions, but because he openly challenges the factual and moral foundations of public life. His record includes anti-Semitic rhetoric, flirtation with Holocaust denial, rejection of the post-1989 constitutional order, and a pro-Russian foreign policy line that echoes Kremlin narratives on Ukraine and NATO. Engagement with Brown is therefore treated in KO as crossing a red line on that would immediately damage Poland's standing in Brussels, Washington, and among its core European allies, which is actually true. I agree with these sentiments wholeheartedly. On the right, the calculation is more tactical. For Law and Justice, Brown represents a strategic trap rather than a moral red line. If party leader Jarosław Kaczyński allows peace to drift towards Brown's agenda on Ukraine, or even Polexit, the party risks alienating its moderate conservative electorate and undermining its credibility with Washington and NATO. If Law and Justice, if peace steers clear, its more radical voters drift towards Brown, drawn by his uncompromising rhetoric and anti-system posture. So, the right wing in Poland has a dilemma. This dilemma is compounded by Law and Justice's internal paralysis. The party is locked in a struggle over its future direction, with competing camps arguing over whether to move right or recenter. Kaczynski's current absence from day-to-day politics due to hospitalization has weakened his ability to impose discipline or reconcile these factions. Brown is also reshaping the behavior of the original Confederation, from which Brown's Confederation split after he broke party discipline and ran for president last year against joint leader Sławomir Mencen. While Brown claims the role of uncompromising anti-system insurgent, Sławomir Mencen, also his co-leader Krzysztof Bosak, have moved in the opposite direction, scrubbing up their image and presenting themselves as responsible party of government. The strategy has come at a cost. As Confederation trades protest politics for respectability, it has lost some of its outsider appeal and appears to have hit a polling ceiling in the low teens, down from earlier highs. Brown benefits directly from this shift, inheriting the space of radical opposition that Confederation is deliberately vacating. The numbers that changed the equation. And as you can see, that spells trouble for Polish politics. Brown's rise is not just affecting rivals' calculations. It is accelerating a shift in the structure of Polish politics. For 2 decades, the KO-PiS duopoly has organized electoral competition as a shared system of power, even between bitter adversaries. The two camps have fed off each other through polarization, framing every election as an existential choice and leaving little space for alternatives. This arrangement allowed both sides to mobilize loyal electorates, dominate media attention, and absorb protest voters by presenting themselves as the only meaningful choices, while marginalizing challengers. Law and Justice, in particular, long incubated radical and anti-system currents under its broad right-wing umbrella, keeping them electorally useful but politically contained. That model is now breaking down. CBOS polling from late January showed the original Confederation at 11.2 and Brown's party at 9.8, giving the far right a combine of 21% ahead of Law and Justice on 20.4. So they would need to form a coalition. Brown is no longer draining votes at the edges. He is helping to fracture the duopoly itself, pulling voters out of Law and Justice's former holding pen and contributing to a more fragmented, volatile political system. A familiar European dilemma in Polish form. Other European systems have seen radical outsiders grow stronger through isolation rather than engagement. Germany's alternative für Deutschland, AfD, remains excluded from federal and state coalitions, yet polls near record highs and shapes the agenda of mainstream parties forced to compete for its voters. Poland's case is distinct. The right's refusal to work with Brown is tactical, not moral. The outcome, however, is similar: a radical party that shapes the system without bearing responsibility. Brown does not need power to matter. He only needs to stay large, isolated, and indispensable to everyone else's fears. And there is also a big fear within Poland that the far right might return to power should they decide to actually work together, which is a fear that I share, unfortunately. That is a distinct possibility that due to the blunders of the current coalition and due to the fact that a far-right person has won the presidential seat, that he holds the veto power to block many things that the current more centrist coalition is trying to do, might mean that the voters angry with the results of the current government will turn again to the right, and we will be back in an anti-European Union mess that we were before, which would spell trouble for Ukraine. Again, unfortunately, I must say that I do not finish this on a positive note. But we do not live in a positive world. We do not live in a world of good news. That is for sure. That is for sure. Any questions? I know that not many people actually cover Polish politics, so maybe you have some questions for me? No? No questions for Lucy? As we are entering our 12-hour of streaming, and I might finish stream soon and go to the store to buy some breakfast for myself. Also, we have a Prime on Twitch. Don't hesitate to use your Prime on me. Twitch Prime, that is. Okay, I guess that's it. I guess I'll raid you into somebody. Oh, how much power does the president in Poland have? Isn't there a prime minister? What's the difference? So the president in Poland does not have much power. Mainly he's considered the chief of the armed forces and can present bills to the parliament, same, and has the right to veto bills. That is the power that the president has. The prime minister forms the government, chooses the ministers, and basically the prime minister in Poland has much more power than the president. We have both the president and the prime minister. Prime minister has more power. But a strong instrument in the hands of the president in Poland is the veto power, to veto bills from being pushed. And if the government does not have a sufficient majority in the parliament, then it does not have the power to overcome the presidential veto, which is the situation that we are finding ourselves in now. The currently ruling coalition does not have the enough of a majority in the parliament in order to overcome the presidential veto of Karol Nawrocki, the current president. All right, I've answered. So, I suppose this is it for stream for tonight, right? We have streamed for a long time. We have earned some lovely subscribers tonight. We have been rated, which is beautiful. Thank you very much. I assume this is due to, thanks to Estelle. And yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll raid you. Oh, I cannot raid on this channel. I'm too small. So I guess that's it. There's no raiding because I cannot raid. Fortunately. As sad as it is, I am still far too small to raid. Maybe next time. All right. See you. Bye-bye. It's been fun, I hope, for everybody.